Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
And I'm Tom Scholey, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
We're going to be looking at Al Williamson and Archie Goodwin's success story from this creepy magazine. This is a reprint, but before we do, I want to invite everybody at home to like, follow, and subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Hit that bell icon. It'll notify you when we post new videos, and then you can be the first one in line trying to track down a creepy reprint of this story, or maybe you'll track down the original, but either way, it'll get you ahead of the other people that are looking for this stuff, known as the Kayfabe effect. We show a video, and sometimes those books get scarce or they go up in value. So you want to be the first one in line for that. And let the videos play through to the end. That helps YouTube's algorithm share our videos with other comics fans that haven't found Cartoonist Kayfabe yet. It's how we grow this channel. We thank you for your help on that. On our way to 6 million subscribers.
What are you laughing at?
I'm delighted.
We've had this story pop up in different places for different reasons in the past, and so I thought it'd be a good chance to kind of like take a look at the success story on the channel. It's kind of, there's some interesting things that we'll get into with that. But first, I'd say this is a reprint that features all Al Williamson stories. Nice. So it's kind of cool. When I was looking for a good source for this story, it was kind of neat to find this. And they're reprinted. There's a little bit of a bio of Al Williamson, professional bio. And these stories are reprinted in order, which is kind of neat. So very nice reprints, too. You know, this is line art as opposed to the washes that we see in some of the eerie and creepy stories. And the line work is just crisp and beautiful.
Yeah, you know, I'm excited to see this story at this scale, because I would say that Thrill Kill, probably one of the Neil Adams story, probably one of the most effective Warren horror stories in their entire bibliography. To me, this is one of the most famous horror stories, and probably my favorite. Like, the effectiveness doesn't make it my favorite story, Thrill Kill, right? It's a dark fucking story. But this is my favorite stuff. This is like how the Academy Awards nominate movies about movies that make
That's
movies
right.
and shit like that. A good cartoonist tale in horror. It's some of the stuff that I loved about EC. When you would see the EC offices with Al Feldstein and Gaines running around. My favorite episode of the Tales from the Crypt HBO show was the one with Harry Anderson, where he plays the cartoonist from the EC offices, and everything he draws comes to life. I just love that stuff, man. And pointed it out a lot of times before, but Comics by Les Daniels was my Bible early on, and hipped me to a whole wider world of comics beyond the stuff that I was getting at the Shop and Save spinner racks. So this is how I've always read it. You know, it's a 6-pager, and we're looking at it in like tabloid size or something, like a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper folded in half, basically. The line art isn't the crispest. The nice big lettering makes it easily readable, but I'm very excited to see it at this level.
Well, you know, that's how I encountered this story too, and it the Al Williamson art looks extra tight. It's like this guy's superhuman because you're shrinking it a little bit more, so it's like, man, all this detail, like it's detailed to begin with. So yeah, it's like a refined version of it.
One of the things I noted whenever I was reading it is the lettering's bigger than, say, some of the Marvel comics from this time period.
Yeah.
And it made me think like, oh yeah, this is a slightly more mature audience. Give us a little bigger lettering for our tired old eyes. But it is I think this came up in the Eisner-Miller, one of the chapters we were talking about, and there was some reference to this being maybe Bob Kane that we're hearing about here.
You know, yeah.
Al Cap.
That's the thing I'd always thought of, but then reading it again, seeing this Al Williamson art was making me think, oh, it's Alex Raymond. You know, just because you're seeing this like Alex Raymond style, and like this is like maybe not all the stuff with the assistants, I don't know, but this is like Alex Raymond's lifestyle. Like back then, like if you had a comic strip, it's you did like live in the lap of luxury. This isn't like an exaggeration or anything.
Yeah, this is the comic strip guys. If you owned that comic strip, you were doing well. If it was a successful strip, and of course Al Williamson did several comic strips, so has some real reference to this.
Highly inspired by the works of Alex Raymond, the Nightingale photorealistic cartoonists that came before him.
That's the other piece that attracts me is Al Williamson, one of the great I often say the greatest inker to ever work in comics, but I mean, just one of the great illustrator cartoonists. And I mean, this is him. I think it is apex, this time period, you know, as great as he is in those early days in EC, like he's a kid, you know, like this is really him at the height of his powers in a lot of ways. And some of the marks, like the folds in the clothing and stuff, they're masterful. Remind me a little bit of Bernie Krigstein. You know, it's just really sharp stuff, has a variety of lines that we're going to see as we go along. And this is a story about a cartoonist, super successful, Baldo. And this is the head of the syndicate here visiting and looking for maybe get a sketch for my kid. He'll love that.
Baldo Smudge is the name.
We start at the docks with these goals, like climbing up out of the water, up out of the river, and cut to Baldo's studio. So
here's the thing, though, like the way this reads to me is like this could be like one of the strips. Like that's
interesting
because it immediately cuts to, you know, the guy praising him, like what a phenomenal comic strip. So just imagining that, you know, that is one of the famous Baldo strips, and here he is doing the job that he can do. I think this is also catharsis for the creatives involved, because Al Williamson, one of the things is using that old tradition of the Raymond school and the photorealistic school is big reference user, and you see it throughout, no doubt, man. Probably just like lifting photos with these establishing shots of cityscapes and stuff. If you those EC hardcovers that you see behind us when we're doing shoot interviews and things, you could look through those, and there are a smattering of the photos that he would like have used at that time, where none of this stuff is faked. And to me, that was an incredibly liberating thing to discover, because imagining that you have to like come up with all of this out of your head, that's impossible.
Yeah, right. I always love seeing like the artist set up to in any of these drawings. You get to kind of like dissect tools and stuff. I've never used one of these round like brush and pen holders, but I see those a lot. You see the paper all cut out and ready to go. Reference libraries of books everywhere. A radio to pass the time. And man, when I look at this, it's like this L shape. You never need to get out of that chair. Like this can be six hours of not moving, like super unhealthy.
I mean, that's literally what I have set up. And I even have that exact swing arm.
It's fun stuff for sure. Seeing the setup.
Klaus uses this technique where he has the drawing table, but then a separate lap board to do his panel border ruling and lettering guides.
Yeah, I see a lot of artists that use some version of that. I can remember seeing like Eddie Campbell sitting like in a small apartment, you know, early days of cartooning, and just the lap board on his knees, like sitting on the floor and stuff. So kind of cool.
This is a super tight story, and you notice like the horror elements are minimal. It's really just bookends. There's not like a middle section where it's like, okay, and now here's where the ghouls are, you know.
Yeah, this is auto bio horror. The horror is you're being one of the assistants, and you know the story here is Baldo basically hires different people to write the strip, to pencil the strip, and to ink the strip, and tries to keep them all separate, so that they think they're just, you know, helping out on the penciling this for this storyline or whatever.
He gives it a go, and the syndicate heads are like, "This will not do." It's probably my first introduction of Unreliable narrator, where the caption is not what happens really in the panels. Like the captions are his conversation with the syndicate head. I love this right here. Like this lady, she's so in the comics world. Maybe she's the daughter of like one of the first gen cartoonists, because she's like, I will not be married to a creep who rules panel borders. And it's like, for a woman at this era to even know what that means,
cutting promos, she's got
to have grown up in the game and know that like that ain't shit. You got to have your own strip.
She is right, and it is fun. I'm glad you point out that the difference between what's happening in the panel versus the captioning. Really cool writing by Archie Goodwin on that, because like hard work and initiative do not go unrewarded. One day my big break came. It's not at the syndicate. It's that Uncle Marvin died and left them some cash so they can hire someone to write, draw, and ink the strip.
Both of these pieces are probably lifted directly from photos, and maybe even, you know, artograph projected, and then you trace it off. And the armchair viewer, listener will be like, cheating, whack, whatever. This was literally an art assignment when I was at the Kubert School. Take a photo and distill it down into a very clear concise image. And when you see 30 different dudes' interpretations of what that is, you realize that there's a skill to it. You know, like kayfabe and foreground elements,
Right.
like the foliage and stuff. That's where the artist's mind comes into play. And I do think that there is a lot of lifting and tracing and stuff like that. But when we see those zombies, and that's, you can't film that. It's like, so you're seeing the real artist's hand. I think of this stuff as kind of like a collage of photograph and whatever else you're using, but then you have the artistic stroke to turn it into an Al Williamson page or a Wally Wood page or a Neil Adams page. That's the difference. That's like when people talk that smack on like those modern day guys from the big two. There's the popular guy who does that. That's different because it looks mechanical and like whack. This is Al Williamson artwork, no mistaken. And we have these beats, right? So you have the beats with the writer who's writing his ass off and doing his best. The guy who's penciling and doing his best, and you see the same camera motif. The guy who's lettering and inking, and then you see the sort of issues that this is. And by the way, this is why we can't have a manga system here in the States because everybody wants their credit.
Right. And I love that the only thing he's doing is rolling piano boards.
All the time.
Nothing has changed for him, except that he's got this successful strip that other people are...
And these are probably photostats, too, if you look at the drawings. Just like the same drawing photostated and then a different guy in the chair.
Yeah, the way that you could tell, like, here's the original, and you look at, like, the definition on the forehead right there, like the hatching.
Yeah, it starts to disappear.
Yeah, like, so this is, like, the second generation image. And you could see like the little like stuff right here. So like he's pasted up and then you just draw like the fresh guy. And these are different faces. You know, it's clearly the same hand, but Williamson is good at like not having the same face syndrome. Famous story with about Bob Kane was at the, you could flip.
You know what? I just want to comment. I love this cut. You know, from
Yeah,
like their
transition.
little apartment to their
Long Island,
Connecticut.
or whatever.
Right next to Bushmiller. But Bob Kane was at the DC offices, and somebody, Julie Schwartz, one of those guys was like wanted him to just change something. And he was like, "Oh, I'll take it home and do it." And they're like, "No, we got to go to press, like like tomorrow, like it needs to be done right now." And finally, Bob Kane is like, "Okay, cool, I'll handle that." And the editor continues to do what he's doing. And like before the day was out, they saw that he was standing over like Murphy Anderson, like in another room, like as Murphy Anderson was redrawing, the Batman arm.
That's amazing. So these guys, they're drinking. The assistants end up drinking at the same bar and complaining and bitching and realize, wait, you write it, I pencil it, you ink it. What's Smudge doing? What's Baldo doing? And they decide they're going to go and confront him about this because they're doing everything. They're doing the entire strip. And he knew this day might come, and he's ready for him.
And by the way, like, this guy didn't need to be a cartoonist. He's the fastest gun in the West because he puts 3 dudes down in very rapid succession. And you would think, like, if this is the first guy to get shot, this guy should be a little scarce.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I'm saying? But this guy, bah, bah, bah.
Yeah, at least one of them should be on the ground. I love that they all have the different jackets.
Yeah.
You know, it's 4 different textures for jackets, which speaks to that autograph thing. You know, like you can have the photocopies, you can transfer it or blow it up on the wall or whatever to get the reference correct, but you still need to distinguish them. You still need to make it your own in some way, and that pays off. You know, like you want these guys to be distinct. They all kind of look the same, so put different jackets on them.
There was this one teacher at the Kubert School, Sergio Caraello, at the time he was drawing the Azrael monthly comic book. And when Denny O'Neil was writing it, would send him the scripts. Like, he would take a weekend and basically go to places that might be close enough for the scenes in the comic. And, he would literally... go to like his nearest school, like when the bus driver's like waiting for the kids, he would talk to them. I'm a cartoonist. Can I take some photos like on the bus before the kids come here just to get the orientation? And I remember specifically a comic he was working on was at the docks, was at the wharf, and he like went to
that's kind of cool.
Some New Jersey
Give you something
dock.
to do on the weekends or the evenings, go out and get some reference and stuff for it. I kind of like that. That's neat. Makes a reference to this is why he had them getting so much work done, work ahead of the deadline, just in case something goes wrong like this.
Then you can find 3 other guys.
That's right, plenty of time. I thought he should have had a cast of like 6 guys, and then it would have been almost perfect. You could be taking breaks and who's drawing what and when.
That's a thing, man. It's a 6-pager, but I feel like it's this kind of stuff that like makes Archie Goodwin so respected, because there's not one waste. I mean, like, we laugh, right?
Right, yeah, but
there's
that's efficient storytelling.
Yeah, there's finite amount of real estate here, so you got to get rid of these guys quick.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's also very dynamic, even though it's a guy that just sits at his desk all day. But yet we still get a variety of angles, of blacks and whites. Like, there's still a way to make this interesting, even though it's essentially a desk job.
And it's nice talking about the Les Daniels reprint of this. It's nice seeing this part, because that gets real muddied in there. It's nice seeing like all the drawing going on in there. Might be more effective in the Les Daniels, just because it is muddier and less distinct. Here I'm really appreciating the drawing, where like it's more the horror in the other.
The nice piece here to me is a little bit of a callback to EC Comics, right?
Yeah.
A guy who's got that history under his belt. And speaking of efficiency, like the way each of these pages ends, like they really do get in and out quick.
Yeah.
You know, because we're going to turn the page here. You know, we see the ghouls come into the studio. Cartoonist Kayfabe is brought to you by the comics that Ed Piskor and I make. If you want to support Cartoonist Kayfabe, pick up our comic books. Hulk Grand Design Monster and Hulk Grand Design Madness is my latest comic. It's in comic shops everywhere right now. A retelling of the 60-year history of the Incredible Hulk, featuring me as writer, artist, colorist, letterer. This is my version of the Hulk, paying homage to some of the great cartoonists that have come before me. Pick this up wherever you buy comics. Red Room Trigger Warnings, now available in comic shops everywhere. Banned in 23 countries and 11 comic shops, but even those comic shops that ban it can pick it up for you. You can pre-order or may be able to pull it out from underneath the counter. Murder on the Dark Web for fun and profit. This is the second season, but every issue is self-contained, so whichever one you come across, pick it up. It's the perfect, complete story in each issue. And the Antisocial Network is the collection of the first season of Red Room, again, available wherever you pick up your comics.
Jimmy, can we look at that backdrop before we get out of here? All right, we're done paying the bills, man. Let's get back to the video. I just want to like point out like one of these atmospheric things to create like a 3D effect that Williamson does in almost every panel is like having some sort of atmosphere or smoke kind of cut through in front of some stuff and sometimes behind certain things.
Right.
And you see it often, you know, breaks up the shape of, the pattern on the jacket a lot. And it just creates a little bit of 3D, you know, like he's very conscious of that.
It's part of that dynamic thing, you know, like this word balloon breaking the panel border, I think does a little bit of that. And then he's breaking the word balloon, and even the lettering sound effect, I feel like, is one of those 3D elements that pops into a foreground, creates some depth.
That's not ideal to have the last panel hand come to something like that, like as a storytelling piece. You might want to rethink that part storytelling wise, but...
So when we turn the page, whatever happened has happened. You know, some time has passed. We saw the ghouls enter, but now nobody is there. And what is there is like some slime, like something climbed out of the river. And the drawing is left behind. But that's not red ink. That's drawn in blood.
It would be cool to do a reprint with like red ink for that last part.
Yeah, I think it's duotone paper for the drawing part.
Yeah, again, that one looks really beautiful at this size.
And that is Al Williamson.
Yeah.
Like, if you ever seen him at that age, like, that's his hair and everything.
You talk about, like, muddy reprints. Like, this would be the panel that there's no way you're going to shrink this panel down and get it to reproduce well.
Yeah, let's take a look real quick.
Yeah, Al Williamson, like, I've seen some of the photos from his morgue, and it is, like, amazing. Gets his whole family to pose, and, you know.
Yeah, you can see like all of that shade just kind of goes to
again.
black
It's a little scarier. It's a little more horrific. It is kind of that VHS effect of like lo-fi media is a little scarier than hi-fi.
Totally. I think of it as like in horror terms, it would be like if you encountered the H.P. Lovecraft stories like in the actual pulps, where it creates this context of like we're not too far away from the 1800s. Like, did this thing come from the 1800s? Like, it's just. Multi-generation copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah, you can even see like an eyeball in this version. It's completely just solid black here.
And it looks like a skull.
Yeah.
You know, I encountered this story early enough that it was maybe one of the first like introductions to the comics business or a comics business.
Yeah.
And I really can't undersell like how much like actual stuff I kind of learned from this. Just the idea that there's assistants, that you know, there's a hierarchy, that there's money, that you know, there's a guy you answer to, like, and it's kind of a touchstone. Like, it was early enough that it keeps sort of coming back to me too. It's kind of like, you don't want to be a Baldo Smudge, but then looking back, it's like, oh, maybe I took the wrong lesson. Maybe I should have been a Baldo Smudge.
Because there are Baldo Smudges out there.
If you had to be one or the other, I'd rather be Baldo Smudge than one of those uncredited assistants.
Well, because the downside of being Baldo Smudge is all this supernatural stuff that you don't actually have to worry about in the real world. But like, he gets the real world reward.
But Baldo Smudge, like, his analog today is the comic writer who can write five things at a clip, and if just one of those hits, their life is taken care of. And if two of those hits, that leads to dynastic wealth, where like, their kids are gonna get to be spoiled and shit like that. So there is precedent, and there are examples that you can point to. And
it's a business model.
Yeah, totally.
And we've met like a lot of wannabe Baldo Smudges.
Oh yeah, for sure. Comics are full of those. We mentioned that this is something like Eisner Miller kind of referenced Bob Kane. You could see Stan Lee being referenced in
when
this
they
role
say,
as well.
Uncle Marvin died and you got all his dough. I'm thinking, is that like, cousin Martin?
Yeah, it feels like
is
it,
taking
right?
care of him. Yeah, the cigarette holder is like a Bob Kane. Like, Bob Kane actually smoked one of those. So there's that. The Stan Lee thing too is that it's like, oh, ha ha ha, here's this like immoral guy or whatever. But isn't this essentially what a comics publisher, an old school comic book publisher basically is? It's like, you gather up this team of a bunch of people doing all the work, and then Marvel Comics, whether it's Martin Goodman or Stan Lee or what, like, Marvel Comics rakes in the reward. So it's and then larger than that, it's just like capitalism.
So cool story. I'm pretty excited I got this reprint, just because, again, I think this is prime Al Williamson, and I think the reproductions are pretty sharp. So kind of neat to that's a late era, very affordable, easy to track down. But man, Al Williamson's art is just fun to look at. And it's a cool story because it's about comics, man. You got to love that part if you're making comics and thinking about how that works.
This is a comic, this specific issue is one that Steve Lieber pointed me to when I was a little kid, like, saying that Al Williamson was his guy. Like, that was, that's sort of, for his buck, the best kind of black and white artwork of, like, an adventure kind of comic storytelling point of view.
He has that, we've talked about it quite a bit, like when we look at EC stuff, the idea of like, you've got 4 or 5 textures, and from those you can do clouds, you can do water, you can do the variety of clothing, materials on buildings, all this stuff. And I think it really shows off in this. You see that handful of textures that he has where it's a black and white story, but you look at that page on your screen and it's a whole value system.
Yeah, for sure. Do you see this and imagine like the Dave Sim thing of him getting his brush, using this texture to get his brush to a point so that he could ink the rest? to create his Nightingale lines. You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about. And I'll tell you this about the Nightingale lines. I've talked to a number of people and inkers that have tried this, and I don't know anybody that can duplicate that Nightingale line technique from The Strange Death of Alex Raymond.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. If somebody's able to nail that and it works for them, I guess post it in the comments. But I have tried and tried with Sable hair brushes to no luck.
Old people will tell you, man, that the t-shirt material you're wearing right now is not the t-shirt material that they had as kids, and the Sable hair brush of today is not the Sable hair brush of yesterday.
I believe that.
I don't think you're allowed to be cutting horse's hair and doing that kind of thing anymore.
Well, you know what it is, man. The Sable hair comes from Russia.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, a decade ago or something, there was some sort of trade embargo on that particular thing. So I think you could still get them out of England or something. There were some things you could skirt around it. But yeah, the Sable hair brush is harder and harder to come by here.
Yeah, and the Raphael is like the best you could do cheaply.
Also, the ink has changed.
Yeah,
so
sure.
it's a combination of everything, but I have not been able to do the Nightingale line. So maybe Al Williamson, if anybody could do it, it'd be him. But there may be other techniques that produce those lines.
Seeing a comics maker within a comic, like, I can't help seeing Scott McCloud's self-portrait in Baldo Smudge. I don't know if he's aware of that, if it was a reference that he was making.
Yeah, this would just be a flannel shirt instead
That's
of
hilarious.
what do you call that? A suit jacket.
Yeah, just be the round glasses. You're not going to get the eyeballs in there.
I mean,
Someone needs to redo this in the Understanding Comics style.
Everyone needs to redo this. This is such a great template for a story that each of us could do and have our own. Comics has changed. I mean, this is the comic strip business. We're in the comic book business. So there's a million different things you could do with this basic template and make an amazing story. So,
man, I like that idea. I even want to see all the cartoonists drawing their setup now with contemporary tools and stuff, Wacom's and everything.
Go check out our Dan Clow's Artist Edition video, because you and I spent, I think, a half hour on the end papers up front, which is just a drawing he did of his own studio.
Yes. There you go.
You guys good to go?
Yep.
Yeah.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell, we'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, what's out there?
Hulk Grand Design Monster and Hulk Grand Design Madness, my retelling of the 60-year history of the Incredible Hulk. I'm writing, drawing, coloring, lettering, doing the whole works, and it's available now in comic shops everywhere while supplies last. And please join me on patreon.com/JimRugg.
Red Room trigger warnings 1, 2, and 3 are on the stands as we speak. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game in Red Room Comics. Banned in 28 countries, banned in 10 comic shops. But you can order these comics at my link tree in the description below this video. You can also hit up my Patreon. Check out the Red Room Comics digitally right this very minute. More than 200 pages are up there as we speak. New strips every Tuesday, price $3. It's in the link tree in the description below. Tom, what do you have?
Read Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, Fantastic Four Grand Design, American Barbarian, and check out my YouTube channel, Total Recall Show.
All right, Jimmy, what else do we have?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and merchandise at the links below this video.
That's another great way to support the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Jimmy, give them those marching orders. Will be on our way.
Make more comics.